Fans for Life podcast. I am Landon Thomas. I am joined by my co-host Shahnavaz Makhani. He is back from vacation.
What up?
Welcome back, Shahnavaz.
Good
How
to be
was your
back.
vacation?
It was good. I'm still tired. We got back Sunday night. We went to Portugal and Spain, and it was beautiful. I mean, a lot of fun. Nice spending time, over there with the wife for our anniversary.
There we go.
Yeah, glad to be back, man. It's good to be back home.
Well, I'll say for myself, I'm glad to have you back. I think the Mavericks are too. They were 1-3 while you were out. So I don't think you should go on vacation anymore. Sorry to your wife.
No more vacation. Now my focus is solely on the Mavericks. That's it.
You are in season.
No more.
Wait
There
till the
you go.
off season. There you go. Well, welcome back, Shahnavaz. We have a big episode, a lot to talk about. Really, we'll talk about Luka Dončić's defense. He wants us to mention his improvements on defense, so we are going to talk about it. Jason Kidd defending his players vocally after games, and then Kyrie Irving, he is back. His last 5 games, we'll talk about that. So, first of all, Luka's defense, just to give a background on the story, Luka, he said he has improved on defense, and he knows people aren't going to talk about it because, I mean, you see it, I see it, we all see it. National media doesn't talk about his defense. When they talk about him, they say horrible defense, bad defense. I mean, honestly, he's so good offensively. That's all that gets talked about. And then, I asked him what areas of his game defensively has improved for him, that he feels like should be talked about. And he said his energy, IQ, and also just being able to know the game, reading defensively, reading the game defensively. So, Shahnavaz, just first of all, what have you seen from him defensively? And then what do you gather from his comments after the game?
Yeah, I think you can visibly tell that he's worked on his defense. I don't know if I don't think he's ever going to be an elite defender. He's never going to be a Kawhi Leonard or, a Danny Green or Bruce Bowen, anybody like that. I don't know why I named all Spurs players there, but
I know, what the heck? what were you doing on vacation, man?
Straight to my head. I don't know why. That was weird. I noticed as it was coming out.
With Manu and Tony,
as it came out, I was like, why am I mentioning all Spurs players? No, I mean, look, he's never going to be a great defender, but the knock on Luka was obviously that, he didn't get back on defense. They're arguing with the refs, and we've talked about this with the Mavericks struggles, during some of their losses, getting back on defense after, in transition or even after like long rebounds. I mean, we've seen them struggle at transition defense, but I think you can tell that he's put the time in, and I think having, Jason Kidd in his year, I think more confidence in Kidd's coaching ability, and Sean Sweeney's done a good job with Luka. I think, kind of working with him. And I think Luka kind of understands now that it's he's kind of we have to remember that he's still young, right? Like, he's growing into this leadership role, and he's growing into kind of being the voice, the vocal guy on the team. And I think, with Dorian Finney-Smith leaving and Grant coming in, I think, that kind of put a little bit more of the onus on Luka to say, okay, I got to kind of pick up the slack a little bit. And when you bring in so many new players, I mean, you've got to kind of set the example for them. And I think he's done a good job. I think you can tell on the court that his defense has gotten a little bit better. I mean, he can obviously improve in other areas, but again, he's never going to be, a top-notch defender. So as long as he's putting up the numbers he is and staying in front of his man like he's been doing, I think he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, you definitely mentioned leadership, and that stood out to me because, him showing other teammates that he's willing to do this. He's willing to give effort. And even Derek Jones Jr. said, if he's diving on the floor, no one else, they don't have an excuse. They should be diving on floors too, because that's your star player and he's doing it. So we all should do it. And that's very, it's very impressive to see, because last season he didn't play defense. I mean, let's just be honest. He didn't play defense at all. Just the way the season was going and unraveling, you didn't see him give effort. But 2 years ago, he played defense. This is what he was doing 2 years ago when they had that incredible season and made that impeccable run, to the Western Conference Finals. He was doing this 2 years ago, and it's back. So, it's all about giving energy. Like you said, he's not going to be a great defender. He's not. He'll show flashes of, a couple plays here and there. He'll be like, oh, that was good defense. But as long as he's an average defender, that's all you need. Yeah. And that's what he's doing right now. He's very good at giving effort defensively in the half court. When he in isolation, when players are trying to target him, Russell Westbrook, he's the main one. I just want to vocalize it, but players he's holding his own for majority of the time. If people would highlight just that, because he has good foot speed. Like when he's defending players in isolation, he's doing good. It's transition defense, like you mentioned, that he still needs to improve on, and that's mostly because he's complaining to the refs. I mean, that if he got back, he would be actually average at transition defense as well. So I think he's doing a solid job, honestly.
Yeah, and I think there's a commonality between his play this year and 2 years ago, right? Last year, this team struggled primarily because really Luka was the only offensive threat. Like nobody feared Dinwiddie, nobody feared Dorian, and anything like that. 2 years ago, you had Brunson, so Luka's not having to shoulder the load offensively every single game, and you're seeing it this year with Kyrie. So Luka can expend more energy on the defensive end as opposed to he's still putting up crazy numbers and his efficiency's way up, and they're both shooting the ball extremely well from deep. And so that's another great thing for Luka, is that he doesn't have to, he's not banging his body like all, in the paint, every single game and kind of taking the brunt of the damage. But now you've got that secondary guy again who can take over, and so you can kind of focus on the defensive end. So I think there's a lot of similarities between this year and that conference finals run that we had a couple years ago.
So basically you're just saying he put so much energy into offense last year. He didn't even have the energy to play defense.
I mean, who else was like? Dinwiddie's a good player, but Dinwiddie doesn't scare you. Like off the bench, as a sixth man, he's great. You can't be your starting two guard. Like, Dorian, can't. Dorian's a catch and shoot guy in the corner, right? Like, who on last year's team scared anybody other than Luka? And even when Kyrie came in, it took time to mesh, right? It wasn't going to be an instantaneous kind of fit, like some people expected. And now you're kind of seeing you're seeing the repercussions of having a full training camp, having a full offseason to kind of work together, and how these two guys are meshing, and it's honestly helping both of them on the offensive and defensive end.
It really is, and I like that you pointed that out, because his usage is down. And I mean, obviously it's still high, but it's down comparative to last season, which was a career high. And also I think he should get, obviously it's early, but I think he should start being recognized for his play for MVP, because behind Jokic there's really like 3 or 4 guys who has a case. I mean, it's a long season, but what he's done from so far in this season, it needs to be highlighted. Like when you look at his numbers, the rebounds and assists are lower. Why is that? Because he's actually playing games with Kyrie for the playmaking on the assists, but the rebounds, he actually has a center who is grabbing rebounds. He was,
need to get 9-10 rebounds a game now.
Exactly. So I think holistically, if you look really what's going on, he's actually playing his best season, because his field goal percentage is career high. His 3-point percentage is career high. His free throws are career high. I mean, like you mentioned, his efficiency is career high. In spot up shooting is his best that he's ever played. So, and we're seeing him being able to play off the ball. We saw it a little bit with Brunson, like you mentioned, but now we're seeing the full picture of him having a quality of Kyrie Irving next to him. where he can play off the ball, and it's just showing how valuable he is as a teammate because he's improving his weaknesses, his 3-point shooting, his free throws, and then also his defense and his leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think the only issue is the MVP now is not necessarily the most valuable player. It's, who's the best player on the team with the best record, and it's kind of a
So you're saying they're going to push Tatum?
Yeah, I mean, if Boston finishes with the 1 seed, like the media's been trying to give it to, national media's been trying to give Jason Tatum the MVP award for 3 years. Like, it's just like. Just give
it him on posters when he's not even playing a game.
Dude, it's ridiculous. Like and then there's such a hatred toward Kyrie and because of some of the things he's done in the past. Like, I don't think he or Luka get the credit that they deserve. So it's he's gonna have to maintain this and even play even a little bit better. And the Mavericks are going to have to finish with a top 2 record in the West for him, I think, to even finish top 3 in the MVP voting. Like, I just think as the season goes on, like there's going to be, Boston is a good team. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Tatum isn't in that conversation, but it's like,
he's worthy.
Like, look at the season Luka's having, and I understand the knock on his defense and getting back, and arguing with the refs, but everyone makes it out to be like he's still arguing like he did 2-3 years ago. Like, he's cut down on it considerably, and I think he needs to, but like you said, he needs to be rewarded. It needs to be, it needs to be more of a conversation about that.
Yeah, and I feel like when you look at it, there's Jokic, and then you have Embiid, you have Giannis, you have Luka, and then you also have Jason Tatum. You have Devin Booker, if he can play enough games. Yeah. He's playing his best season of his career. And then SGA. I mean, SGA is probably as worthy as Luka. What he's doing with OKC, getting wins, and just his stats in the eye test as well. So, like you said, it just all boils down to how many wins you have, what your stats are, what the eye test says, and who's the voters. Yeah. Who do they like? I mean, that's why I really want people to highlight them, especially I'm talking national media, because especially the ones that are in Dallas, I mean, they have the voice, they have the eyes, they have the viewers, to really see what he's doing. But if no one's advocating for him, obviously critique the bad that's going on with Dallas, but if no one's highlighting what he's doing, people are going to have split votes, like I just mentioned with all those players. But if you have those eyes, if you have those numbers, the machine pushing your content, people will start saying, "Oh, Luka is having a great season, and Mavericks are winning." So let me give him my vote.
Like, I understand, like, our defense can be better, and who's the third best player on this team, and what happens when Hardaway struggles, like I predicted he would, right? Like, what's going to happen when he starts having bad games? But look, this team is winning. Like, that's all that matters. They're top 4 seed in the West right now, and we both thought they would be in the bottom third of the in the playoff standing. So I'll take it. I mean, a winning record, 5-6 games over 500. Like, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the schedule at the end too. They could get some more wins here. Yeah. Here's coming up. Okay, so next topic. Let's talk about Jason Kidd defending his players. Obviously, it went viral around in the NBA world. Just even LeBron posted about it. Just Jason Kidd defending his players. I mean, vocally, he after the game, he pretty much just said what we just talked about. Highlight the good. Show some positive stuff. And that's what he was saying. Was he went back and forth with Tim McMahon of ESPN on McMahon asked the question about just the comparison from last year's clutch time with Luka and Kyrie to this year's clutch time with Luka and Kyrie, because they weren't winning games last year, and now they are in the clutch. They're one of the best, if not the best team this year in the clutch. So Kidd was just tired of the question. It's end of November, he's still getting that question, and Luka and Kyrie are still getting those questions. So he was like, last year it was bad, but this year you're starting to see it because they had time to play together, like you just mentioned. So just why aren't we highlighting the good as much as it was all over the world last year on they couldn't play together? So just want to get your comments, because you came back to that. You came back from vacation and that happens. So what is your initial thoughts on Kidd defending his players?
Man, I saw that and I immediately went to Twitter and I said, I have so much more respect for Jason Kidd now. Like I've knocked on him as a coach, and he, I mean, obviously he's a Hall of Famer. He's a Maverick legend. He's a champion. Like, love him, as just a, as a player and as a, kind of a he's got great stature here in the city of Dallas, but as a coach, he's had his up and downs. But man, to see him defend, Luka and Kyrie like that, especially, he has a point. Like we've talked about this, and anybody who follows the national media and reads these articles on ESPN and Fox Sports and The Athletic and whatever, or watches clips on YouTube or Twitter, I mean, you can see it. Like there's very rarely are there positive things being said about Luka and especially Kyrie, right? And look, Kyrie's had his up and downs in his career, but the guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer if he retired today. Like Luka is arguably a first ballot Hall of Famer already. If he retired today, he's going to have a lot more accolades coming his way. I mean, and you mentioned it, this is probably the most clutch team in basketball right now. I mean, the Mavericks are winning games that they would have lost last year, and Kidd said it, like, this isn't last year. Like we can't go back. Like let's focus on what's going on now, and this team has a winning record. Like this team is a top 4 seed. Like we said, there needs to be more positivity surrounding these guys, and you want your coach to have your back. Like last year we saw Jason Kidd kind of shy away from that a little bit, and I think the way this team was struggling last year kind of affected everyone, and you can kind of look back and kind of see that now, and you can kind of see emotionally where people were, and I'm sure it's hard on Jason Kidd too, right? When you lose Jalen Brunson, now you have to have this like makeshift roster and try to, you made the conference finals, but how do you get back to it? And you started off poorly, and I'm sure it's bothered him too. So to see him have Luka and Kyrie's back and be 100% correct, like that's awesome to see. Like that's exactly what you want if you're a fan, and it's what you want if you're a player. And I bet you it fired up not just those two, but everybody else on the team as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a reality check on how close Kidd is to these players. I mean, we've heard Luka and Kyrie mention Kidd as their as a mentor, one of their mentors, and you really see it in firsthand, because I wrote about it that Kidd's coaching really good this season.
Yeah.
He probably hasn't seen it, but I even wrote about Luka playing good, and last year I wrote about Kyrie. And I love covering him because you see it in person. You see, because I was skeptical when he came, and I didn't tweet out horrible things like others did, but I wanted to see what I saw, because you can't go off what national media says. You can't go off what someone else says in their locker room. If that's what happened, that's what happened. But I'm covering what the Mavericks do.
Right.
I see what he's doing in Dallas, and there's a balance. I think what Kidd just wants is balance. I don't think he wants positivity. I don't think he wants employees of the Mavericks, like we're all a positive of the Mavericks. Like I think he wants balance, and I think that's what he was saying, is he wants more positivity when they're playing good, and when they're playing bad you can do that, but when they're playing good, highlight it as much as we do when they play bad, because that's the problem. Like I mentioned, they're playing good. I mean, you mentioned they're top 4 right now, and we had them ranked 7th seed, and they're playing above our expectations. So we have to highlight them for what they're doing to be above our expectations. And I applaud Kidd for that.
Oh, absolutely.
I applaud it.
Yeah, you love to see it, and you can, you mentioned there, this is it's a very different team than last year, right? Even with Kyrie, like now you can see how well.
I don't think he just liked that roster. I don't think he liked it.
Yeah, no, I mean, who did, right? Like even us, like we were like, who's the second best player on last year's team? Like I don't even know. You know, I guess Dinwiddie, I guess Dorian. Like, but when you can, you know, and we've said it before. Hats off to Nico for, you know, you bring in basically an entirely new starting lineup, right? Other than Luka, like you're kind of, you know, you're hitting the reset button essentially after making the conference finals 2 years ago, and had, you know, credit to Jason Kidd for working with, you know, with the players that Nico's brought in. And, you know, look, the Mavericks, they go 1-3 in a tough stretch. We talked about it, you know, a couple weeks ago before I left for vacation, that it was a critical stretch for the Mavs. Like that, it was kind of it was gonna show really how
overall they went 2-3, but you got back before the Rockets game.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to mention is, look, that Rockets game, like the Rockets are not a bad team. Like Ime Udoka's coached them well. Like they've got players on their team. I mean, obviously, you know, say what you will about Dylan Brooks, but he's a good defender. And you saw the effect of having Luka and Kyrie. You know, that's a game that the Mavericks lose last year, like 100%, even after the big lead they had and you know, giving it up. And, you know, to finish that game off the way they did, you know, that's a game that, if the Mavericks are in close games like that, we've seen them lose a couple, like to Milwaukee, right, a couple weeks ago. It's gonna happen, you know. But if you've got Luka and Kyrie and they're meshing the way that they are now, I mean, this team is pretty unstoppable.
Yeah, they are, and you're seeing the true Jason Kidd so far from what we've seen in the 17 games. You know, because we said it, you and I said it. This is the rubber match. You know, this is season 3. We saw great Jason Kidd season 1. We saw a lack of coaching in season 2, and now he has the roster that he wants, and he's trying to mimic, you know, season 1 of, you know, because he was really close to Brunson, and he's even closer to Kyrie.
Yep,
they have a real deep connection.
I mean, he was Kyrie's favorite player growing up. Like, you know, Kyrie grew up in New Jersey, watched Kidd. You know, that's kind of his idol.
And Kyrie has also said the one person he gets advice from around this whole team is Jason Kidd. Like, there's not an assistant coach or you know, a teammate that he goes to and they just chop it up. Like, obviously you do that with your teammates, but the one person the most is Jason Kidd. They have that deep connection, and I think that's what we lose grip on. And I'm talking about you know, just fans of the team. It's one thing to critique Jason Kidd's coaching, and that's fair. I do it myself. You do it when he's doing bad, but you know, we also lose the sight of how close he is to Luka and how close he is to Kyrie, and how Nico trusts him, and how Mark Cuban trusts him as well. You know, we lose sight of that. Okay, so our third topic, first of all, tonight, Luka is out. He is out due to personal reasons. It was on the Mavericks injury report, the latest one. And then also Dante Exum is out. Tim Hardaway Jr. Dante's out due to personal reasons as well. Interesting.
Curious. Very curious.
Tim Hardaway is questionable with back spasms, and then also Max is available with an ankle sprain, so that's good to see him. So it leads to our third topic. Kyrie is back, and they're going to need even more of Kyrie tonight. But what do you think about, I know we can't say anything until we know exactly what Kidd says about Luka and Exum being out later, but it is interesting or concerning because Exum was in practice and he was fine yesterday. Nothing happened. And Luka was good too. You know, if we saw Luka out, it's just normal. They have a back-to-back. They play the Thunder tomorrow, you know, cautionary reasons. But him and Exum are out due to personal reasons, not the thumb or something else. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I forgot that it's back-to-back. And look, and the Thunder in playoff positioning, right? They're a good team. I mean, maybe this is get Exum, who's a good defender, a little bit of rest, and we'll probably see him play a little bit more tomorrow against a guy like like SGA. You know, maybe that's
Play the
maybe
whole
that's what
game
it is. Like, who
in the
knows? I
game.
don't know. I mean, kids just playing mind games with us at this point. I don't know. I mean, you're going up against a Memphis team that's injury riddled and struggling, and you know, maybe it's just like, all right, like whatever. You know, who knows? We'll find out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So let's talk about Kyrie because they're going to need him.
Yeah.
His last 5 games, he's averaging 28.6 points per game. He's shooting 48% from the field, 36.8 from 3-point range, and then also 100% from free throw line. 4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1 steal. What have you seen? Well, you're on vacation, but just what do you think about his play during the last 4 games, and how imperative is it for him to have a good one tonight?
I mean, he's the second best player on this team. I mean, he's a top 20 player in the NBA, top 15 player in the NBA. He's a top 75 player all time. I mean, he's critical to the Mavericks' success. Like, without him, I mean, you're basically running back a version of last year's team. You know, this is, you know, you've got to have, you know, we've talked about it a lot. The NBA, you've got to have 2 stars, right? One superstar and then one other star, and he's got to be that guy. And I think it's really interesting, the career arc of Kyrie, when you look at the situations where he's been very comfortable and the situations that he's thrived in, as opposed to the ones where he's struggled. He's been so much better as kind of that second fiddle, where he can just go out and play basketball. Like, he doesn't have to be the leader. He doesn't have to go and, you know, like he was in Boston, where he's got to teach all these young kids. I mean, you know, guys like Tatum and Brown, who were first, you know, top 3 picks, you know, or, you know, when he goes to Brooklyn, like he's the one who brought KD there, and you know, they push for Harden, and then they go down, and it's Kyrie's got to be the, you know, this is very similar to Kyrie in Cleveland, where it was LeBron, it was a LeBron show, and it was LeBron was getting all the talk, and Kyrie was just doing his thing, you know, and balling out. And I think that's a situation where he's so much more comfortable, and it's great to see now the chemistry between he and Luka, and the way that they can play off ball with each other. Like, that was the big concern when Kyrie came in, right? It's okay, there's one basketball, like who's taking that last shot? We saw it last year, them kind of like passing the ball back and forth to each other, like who's going to take the last shot?
Yeah.
You know, who's kind of going to initiate the offense, like who's going to do this and that. Now you're seeing kind of the culmination of all of that hard work and in the offseason training camp kind of come together, and Kyrie's playing out of his mind. Like, this is the best he's looked in years, I think, probably since the Cleveland days. Like, I think this is, you know, the best basketball he's played. I mean, and the Mavericks need it, because other than him and Luka, like, I don't know, you know, you're banking on a streaky Tim Hardaway Jr., who, look, Hardaway's played great, you know, don't get me wrong, but we've seen him struggle recently in the last few games. So, you know, you need Luka and Kyrie to kind of carry that burden, and teams are gonna attack Luka. They're gonna double team him, and that's when Kyrie's got to show up, and he's done that so far, especially the last 5 games. I think he's really settling into kind of his role here.
Yeah, he really is, and it's incredible to see just him be happy.
Yeah,
you know, him having the comfort of being in an organization that trusts him. Like, he trusts the front office. He loves the coach, and he likes his teammates. That's a happy Kyrie. So it's good to see the best version of himself, and now we're starting to see the best version of himself on the court. That's why I wasn't really worried about, you know, the slump that he had to start the season. He missed most of preseason, and I mentioned it that he's in a slump, but I you know, people were saying, oh, they just paid him and he's having this bad start to the season, but like it's like you always say, it's a long season.
Yep.
And we're starting to see the true Kyrie, and it's incredible to see, because even though the record didn't show it, I mean, we, you know, 2-3 in the last few games, but that Milwaukee was close. I mean, they could have been 3-2.
Yeah.
So it's just great to see the vision become reality, and I think just down the road, when we look back at this season, it's going to be very pivotal for the success of this franchise to get back to where they want to be. Looking at the upcoming schedule, I mean, it is the Memphis Grizzlies, so they're horrible right now, but they have the potential to have a great game. They still have Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, they can go off on one night. They need to come ready no matter what. Every player needs to step up. Grant Williams, Josh Green. Yeah, they have to step up tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies without Luka and without Dante and possibly THJ. Like you said, if he plays, he has to bring it. He can't be streaky. He has to have a great night, but he usually plays good at home. So the next 5 games, how many games do they need to win, Shahnavaz? Grizzlies, Thunder, Jazz, Blazers, and Grizzlies again.
I mean, out of that 5, you should win 4. Like, I don't think there's other than the Thunder. I mean, you're talking about teams that aren't very good. I mean, I could see them dropping one to the Grizzlies. I would say if they win 3, if they go 3-2 in that stretch, I mean, I think you can call it a success. The Thunder matchups is super intriguing to me because OKC is a really, really good young team. I mean, they're playing at a high level, and they're fun to watch. Chet looks great, and it's Lively versus Chet is going to be super interesting. And how do the Mavericks defend SGA? And what kind of game do Luka and Kyrie have? Because they're going to need both of them if they're gonna keep up with OKC. So I think there's some games. The Jazz game is kind of there's it's like trap games, right? Like these are teams that the Mavericks should beat. So it'll be interesting to see. But that Thunder matchup tomorrow night is super, super intriguing to me.
I'm not going to get into the details until we get the facts, but do you think the AAC boos Josh Giddey?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right. And Shahnavaz, last words. I'm going to surprise you. We didn't talk about this topic, but
all right.
What is your thoughts on Mark Cuban selling majority stake of the Mavericks and becoming the minority owner of the Mavericks with the Adelson family?
I was shocked. Mark Cuban's the last.
We're in process of. Yeah.
Cuban and Jerry, I think, were the last 2 guys I ever expected to sell, ever. I would have thought they'd keep it. Cuban would keep the Mavericks until he passed away. But I've had, kind of some time to, obviously do research and kind of read about it. And from what it seems like, I think Cuban knows something we don't in terms of what's coming down the pipeline in terms of gambling laws in Texas. Mark's been very, very open about wanting to bring a casino and a resort to Dallas. And I think he's wanted to partner with the Sands family for a long time. I mean, if you go and do some reading, I mean, this isn't kind of out of the blue, the relationship that he's got, with the Adelson family. Like, this is a long-standing relationship that dates back, years and years and years. So that's not, I think the more reading and kind of the more knowledge you get about it, I mean, I think this is trending towards Cuban's vision of bringing that casino resort sports book to Dallas. And that's I think that's going to be his baby, and that's going to be his, kind of his focus going forward. He still, by all accounts, retains basketball operations. So that's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of a scenario where we got somebody selling the team and retaining, control of basketball ops. So that's super interesting. And for the Adelson family, I mean, I think, by all accounts, I think it's the son who runs the day-to-day of the Israeli soccer club.
Son-in-law.
That they own. Yeah. And I think from what I'm reading is he's going to be kind of the head and kind of the, the main owner essentially of the Mavericks. Like, I think that's what it seems like. But look, it'll be interesting. It brings in a crap ton more money for the Mavericks. I mean, I think you said it. You don't ever have to worry about luxury tax payments anymore, right? Like, go out and pay for whoever you want now. I mean, you're talking this. They are extremely wealthy. And yeah, I mean, bringing in money is always good. You build a first of its kind resort, sports book in Dallas. I mean, that's just going to bring in more revenue, and players are going to want to play in a brand new arena. So it's a good thing. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't buy into the talk of Dallas moving to Vegas or anything like that. Like,
that's never happened.
It's going to happen. The NBA would never approve it, first off, and secondly, they'll have an expansion team in Vegas in 2 years anyway. So
exactly.
Look, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I think Cuban knows something we don't in terms of what the gambling laws are going to be, and I think that's why this went down.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to. It's obviously a financial thing, and also opportunistic opportunistic time to be the first of something, and that's what this is all about. Because I was like you. I mean, I think he's even said he wanted to pass down the ownership to his kids, when he is long and gone. And I think that's what's shocking, but it's like you said, it's also not shocking, because he's talked about wanting to partner up with this the Sands ownership with the Adelson family, and he's talked about wanting a casino arena. So that's really what this boils down to, is they have the money to do that stuff, and he doesn't. So now, because the evaluation of what the Adelson family is getting is 3.5 for the majority ownership of this team. And when you look at the holistic evaluation of the organization, it's really 4.5. So, are they getting 66%, and Cuban has minority ownership of 33%? He's still an owner of the team. It's just they have the majority owner, so they're the main they're running the business ops, and he has basketball operations full control. That's basically perfect dream case scenario where Mark Cuban just won Shark Tank himself.
He's the first owner to ever sell a team, pocket $3.5 billion, and literally not lose a job title. Like, he's keeping the job.
You're still the owner.
Smartest guy in the world. And it makes sense for the Adelson family. Obviously you come in, they've been doing this in Vegas, in all over the world, but now you come in and be the first. Once it does get legal in Texas, who knows, it could be 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, but they'll be ready to be the first to have a casino resort in Dallas, Fort Worth, somewhere in the Metroplex. And they've donated a lot of money to Texas government. Like, they've got ties to Greg Abbott, to the governor's office. They can pull some strings, and we all know money talks, especially in politics. So, that's why I'm like, there's something we don't know that people smarter than us have figured out. These guys, the Adelson family and Cuban probably know, or have, the inside scoop on something like this. Like you said, whether it's 2 years, whether it's 10 years, but they're going to be the first ones to do it.
Yeah. And we have to also remember, they don't own the AAC. They're leasing the AAC. I think it expires 2031 maybe, but they'll be ready to, whenever it does become legal, like you said, they'll be ready to have everything in place to find the land, to start building the resort. And also it's pretty easy to move a statue. So, I mean, and some banners. So they'll be ready. So I think it's a great move. Obviously there's some things with the Adelson family that people talk about. I mean, it's fair. It is fair, but honestly, just their ties to some politicians and what they've done, some newsworthy things. But honestly, I just cover the Mavs. There's things Jerry Jones has done, and I cheer for the Cowboys. So I mean, it's like it's
everyone's really got the Pelicans, man.
Exactly. So more to come on that, and it's just a good time for maybe some stars coming to Dallas, more than 2 stars, because now they will be in the luxury tax. You see what Ballmer does with the Clippers, and now the Adelson family will be second in the NBA for the richest sports team owners, and third in all of U.S. sports.
Just nuts.
So bring on all the talent. Can you imagine if Grant Williams and Derek Jones, was like the 9th and 10th best player on this team?
Oh my God.
It's just, there's so many options. Yeah. All right, Shahnavaz, welcome back. Now the Mavs are going to go on a win streak since you're back.
Let's do it.
Goodbye, everyone.